Hello, welcome once again to a wonderful Wednesday webinar. You beautiful people out there, wherever you are, watching this live and direct or later. This week we've got an incredible storyteller with us, Nick Lunch, co-founder of Living Cultures Alliance and InsightShare. These guys have been all over the world helping groups make their films and not just going in there and filming something about them like, the mainstream media does, but empowering them to tell their own story with Indigenous groups all across the planet. Really inspired by Nick's works here, and they've been doing it for decades and many media hubs set up. But over to the man himself to tell you more about it. Nick, thank you so much for coming, and we're looking forward to getting Climate Emergency Centre telling their stories and working with you, hopefully, more to get these stories out. Over. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much, Phoenix. Thanks so much for the invitation. It's a great privilege. I've enjoyed many of these webinars, and it's great to be part of the series. So yeah, I'm Nick Lunch from InsightShare, and I want to talk to you about participatory video. So we're living in a climate emergency, and I want to share a tool that shows us something powerful. The solutions already exist in our communities, and participatory video helps us to see and share and celebrate them. Through the Living Cultures Indigenous Fellowship that we've been running now for about 10 years, we've set up many community media hubs across Africa, Asia, and the Americas. In the last few years, we've trained hundreds of young Indigenous leaders to use participatory video for self-representation, cultural resilience, and environmental advocacy. Through this online fellowship program, InsightShare trains and supports facilitators who are then able to share their skills and establish new hubs in communities across their regions. And we could do the same here in the UK. The hubs show us a simple but profound truth. When people most affected by challenges take control of their own narratives, they can also lead with the solutions. So in this talk, I want to share what participatory video is, why it's different from other forms of filmmaking, and how it could strengthen the work you're already doing. For more information, by the way, on our work with Indigenous peoples, because I'm not going to speak that much about that today, please check out the Living Cultures page on our website, or you can download our 2025 impact report from our homepage. The website's www.insightshare.org. So what is participatory video and how is it different from a documentary film? Participatory video, or PV for short, is more than a way of making videos. It's about getting people to unite and plan together to make change in their communities. And it's a way of making videos with all of the community. To begin with, the group learns how to use the camera through easy games and exercises. Each person teaches the next person how to do it, and anyone can do it. We call this approach each one teach one. Everybody learns how to do all of the different elements of filmmaking, working as a team. Every team member knows how to set up the equipment, how to film, how to record, how to monitor sound, and how to edit. And all the decisions are made together. So together, you will decide the topic of your film. Together, you plan how to tell the story. Together, you decide who to interview, whether to use drama or another form of storytelling. And when it comes to editing, together you decide what to keep in the video. The group has total control over what stories they want to tell, how they want to tell them, and who will see the videos. So to find out more about participatory video, download one of our free toolkits from our website. Now think back for a moment of your most successful Climate Emergency Centre event ever, or something you're most proud of. And imagine a short video made and shared by the people who ran it and by those impacted by it. So they're talking about the project with enthusiasm in their own words. Imagine what a powerful document that would be. When you embed participatory video, the methodology, into your Climate Emergency Centre, you'll be able to capture all the magic as well as the challenges and how you face them. I want to explain why community screenings are so central to the participatory video process. The wider community is always invited to watch the films made by the community filmmakers. It's a way of building support. It could also be a chance to invite local decision makers. Community screenings provide opportunities to engage a wide group in the issues raised and to promote dialogue between different groups and stakeholders. Screenings and associated discussions create spaces for the objectives and content of films to be validated, questioned, challenged, or redirected. Given sufficient planning and resources, community screenings can be the fertile grounds within which actions can be agreed and radical shifts in opinion, attitude, and behaviour are made. Another aspect that makes PV different from traditional filmmaking is that it emphasises process over product. The process harnesses collective decision-making. It encourages deep listening skills and the appreciation of multiple perspectives. It shows us all that we are the experts of our situation. We can find the solutions. We don't need to wait on outsiders or the government to save us. PV catalyses locally led action, inspiring hope and making change happen. So now just imagine hundreds of young people where you live, working with their elders, using cameras to celebrate what they love about their community, but also revealing what needs to change and why. For example, in Oxford, where I live, I've worked with marginalised youth growing up on the council estates surrounding the city, and with young asylum seekers and homeless people, among many other groups. The participatory video has given people a purpose and built their self-esteem. Youth on the Barton estate cleaned up a public park of syringes that were discarded by heroin addicts to make it safer for their siblings to play. Whilst in another project, they designed and painted a beautiful mural to cover obscene graffiti. One such mural covered an entire building on the Cowley Road with an image of a huge tree and the word welcome written in 40 languages. That's the kind of thing we need today, isn't it?
Yes, beautiful, beautiful.
In Blackbird Leys, another estate around Oxford, youth started an allotment club and learned permaculture skills to grow better quality food for their families, whilst a group of young asylum seekers arriving in Oxford were able to engage the university museums through film, dance, and hip hop to offer a radical reinterpretation of colonial legacies. All of this was sparked by participatory video projects. It's the kind of energy and creativity that PV unleashes. Each project has the potential to hold decision makers to account and to earn young people the respect of their community because it leads to tangible change. So now a little bit about why I think storytelling and changing the narrative is so important. I think now more than ever, we need to amplify hopeful narratives, stories from the front lines of the climate emergency, which counter fake news and hateful narratives that seek to divide and scare us and leave us feeling powerless. It's vital to share stories that show how communities are addressing their challenges with ingenuity, with solidarity and love. We need more good, positive stories, right? And also want to really emphasize the importance of stories in driving positive change. People aren't moved by text-based reports, graphs, and concepts. People are moved by stories that show emotion. Participatory videos are designed to be accessible to all and to consider differences like neurodiversity and language. Think of the last time you learned something new. Was it by reading a manual or by having someone show you and then passing it on? Well, that's how PV works. It's a great tool for sharing learning. Imagine a group in one town struggling to secure a space to establish a climate emergency centre. They could watch short videos from other CECs, successful ones, seeing what worked and what didn't, and gaining tips and encouragement straight from the people who've done it. PV could also capture your community champions, like the climate policy officer at your local council, who can be vouching for the impact your CEC has had in the community and help persuade other councils to support the movement, and probably help you get funding as well.
This is what we need. It's such a great tool to build a toolkit to help other new groups set up centres. I just want to jump in there. Thank you. Let's keep talking.
Yeah, and you know, I'm saying this from experience because of these Indigenous media hubs. That's exactly what they do. They build solidarity and they share strategies with each other. They're all facing the same challenges: land grabs, you know, the kind of erosion of their languages, the young people moving to the cities, being educated that their cultures are primitive and backwards, and they're using PV and supporting each other in solidarity.
Brilliant.
So, okay, so now let's take a look at the synergies between InsightShare, my organization, and the Climate Emergency Centre movement, and also Lifehouses, actually. So PV and the CECs both put people at the centre of climate action, don't they? And there are shared principles of autonomy, inclusion, and intergenerational learning. Have you ever heard the slogan, "Nothing about us without us"?
Mm.
It basically means everyone has the right to participate in decisions that affect them. So I think CECs will also need processes in place which support accessibility, inclusion, transparency, and clarity. And I think PV can provide those. Both our organizations share a commitment to experiential learning, meaning learning by doing, with practical capacity building and creating accessible resources that facilitate community action and knowledge exchange. And PV is also being used alongside non-violent communication to support conflict resolution, improve dialogue, to ensure all groups feel heard. And this could be really valuable in our communities, if communities become more polarized. The other thing is that PV creates really great monitoring and feedback loops that I think could support the evolution and growth of a climate emergency centre to ensure it stays attuned to local people's needs and dreams. Finally, PV is a wonderful way for honouring decades of community effort and resilience, which I know the CECs are keen to do. So in summary, participatory video doesn't just represent communities, it resources their movements. PV gathers people to reflect together, to find solutions, to act and celebrate. And it's a catalyst for locally led action. It does this by harnessing collective intelligence and supporting grassroots organising, leading to political agency and change. That's why we say PV is more than video making, it's a way of organising, of imagining, and of building the future together. So just to close my talk, I'd like to explain how participatory video promotes egalitarianism. The method is inherently non-hierarchical. It works as an equalizer because the camera is passed around and nobody is allowed to dominate. PV shifts power to the margins. In the case of the Living Cultures programme, we put cameras and decision-making in the hands of Indigenous youth and women. For example, the PV hub in South Africa and Pondoland played a critical role in a campaign to stop Shell doing seismic surveys along their coastline. Young activists used PV to capture every voice from around the community. They mobilized coastal communities that were outside their area, and they mobilized the international media, and they defeated Shell in court. You can watch that video on our YouTube channel. PV bypasses literacy and language barriers. There's so many of the people we work with, Indigenous communities, have never been to school. They don't read and write. Doesn't matter. They can share their wisdom and knowledge through video. It's a visual and oral-based medium. So it kind of puts everyone on an equal footing. For example, Maasai women used PV to address harmful practices in Kenya without needing the written language. The result of their participatory video was that the community have outlawed child marriage and female genital mutilation practices.
Wow, brilliant.
It also fosters inclusive and intergenerational dialogue, and that's one of the most beautiful things that I've witnessed. Mm. Seeing the elders, the smile on their faces when young people from their community are shown an interest in them and actually come to them for information and for stories and for knowledge. And likewise, seeing the joy in the young people's faces as they gain the respect of their elders, because they're showing an interest in supporting, and addressing the challenges that the community are facing. And I think it's just as valid in the UK. There's an intergenerational divide that's, a big challenge in our communities, really. yeah, the other things, the community screenings I mentioned, they're really meant to act as a safe space for reflection and for sharing perspectives and voice, for youth, elders, and everyone in between. And a little example is in Nagaland in northeast India. One of the traditional food crops used to be millet, but it kind of got out of fashion and people stopped growing it. It's quite hard work. People started getting used to rice instead, a rice-based diet. And in fact, it's much more climate proof than rice. It doesn't require any irrigation, and it's much more nutritious. It can be kept for a longer time without going off. And the way you grow it is you multi-crop it with up to 50 different crops. So the group in the village in Nagaland, they found that only one man was still growing millet in the whole village. So they made a film with him, filming the whole process over a year, learning the traditional songs that went with threshing and all the different activities. And the young people themselves got involved, hands-on, and got into helped the guy with the harvest and the whole process. And when they showed the film, the following year, 150 families planted millet. We can have a big impact in that way. And then PV also supports horizontal learning and leadership. It's peer-led, indigenous to indigenous training. So it's a decolonial approach that InsightShare has been striving for, where it's not a bunch of white Westerners traveling around the world, like people like me traveling around and doing the trainings. It's actually indigenous facilitators training indigenous people, as it will be, in your case, young people in your neighborhoods training other young people and passing on the skills. So yeah, in the case of the Living Cultures Alliance, we've got over 100 Indigenous alumni who've graduated from the fellowship, who are now mentoring and training others and leading video hubs across 3 continents. But PV is only egalitarian when power is truly shared. Communities must control the filming, editing, and story direction. Projects are long-term and trust-based because short-term interventions risk tokenism. And the focus remains on community priorities, not donor approval or external validation. So as I end my talk, my invitation to you is to imagine linking PV hubs with climate emergency centres across the UK, amplifying voices and spreading solutions, inspiring communities. In facing the climate emergency, we don't need to wait for the government, corporations, and institutions to wake up and take action. We hold the solutions already in our communities, and participatory video helps us to see, share, and celebrate them. Thank you.
Oh, Nick, the crowd goes wild. That is one of the most powerful webinars I think we've had, actually. Just the stories from all over the world, and the group here that's working on many different projects. We need to share these stories. So just to say a little bit first of all, and then into whatever questions people want. If you check the chat, if you've got a question, there's a heart-shaped react down the bottom, and you can raise a hand like that so we can see who's 1, 2, 3. But while you're just thinking of questions, just to say, I love that presentation. We did something years ago called Solution Zone TV. We went out to Copenhagen Climate Summit and we aimed a camera, very, activist video, went out and filmed everyone from Swedish MPs to, Greek Greenpeace activists to indigenous people who come with exhibitions and stuff. And basically, basically they came out with so many incredible solutions. The indigenous guys said, well, just let indigenous people manage the land that they've been on for thousands of years, because they know what to do. They know how to live in harmony with things. There are so many great stories out there, and our mainstream media is addicted to the negative and to the bad news. Travels fast, amplified by new social media algorithms. So how can we how can we amplify these great stories from all of these climate emergency centres, 30 or so around the country now? And I think that's such a well thought through thing, Nick, all the different levels, from participatory to screenings to intergenerational, everyone learning the skills to make these things. So look forward to working with you. I will push this around as many groups on the network to try and get them doing their own films and video. But enough for me for now. It's Mary Ellen from DPAC, Disabled People Against Cuts, coming in. Juliet, over to Juliet Nolan, then Dave. And if anyone else got a question, put your hand up with a heart reaction button down the bottom. Juliet, over to you. Over.
Thank you so much, Nick. That is so inspirational. Slight question back, not on how it would apply to CECs, but what you're actually doing. 3 questions, actually. I'll be super quick. Are you finding that women still participate equally? Because I'm doing a different video project, and it's interesting, if I map things, I find still more men from the communities respond than women. That's question number 1. Question number 2, are you measuring the impact for these communities? Are you forced to, or do you not need to, for funders or for the organisations themselves, communities themselves? Question number 3, what do those communities generally want from you? Do they want you to amplify their message, or is it something else? I'm just kind of intrigued, because, you know, what are they getting from it? Or is it simply in order to get their story heard? So it was women, measuring the impact, and what's in it for them.
Thank you. Brilliant questions. Thanks, Juliet. Yeah, it's really an interesting phenomenon, but I've been doing this for over 25 years, the Indigenous work for around 25 years. And time again, it's the women that are the ones that show sustained interest in this process, and the ones who are actually running the hubs. Why that is, I'm not entirely sure. Possibly because it gives them an outlet for their voice. They enjoy it, it's fun. It definitely opens doors for them and gives them opportunities they don't otherwise have. By wielding a video camera, they're often allowed into spaces that they're not traditionally allowed in. For example, with the Maasai, the traditional governance structure, the elders who make decisions are all men, but the women have been allowed into these spaces because they have the video skills to go and document them and interview the men. The Baka I've worked with in Cameroon, forest people. I remember soon after the training hearing with great excitement from our partners that the women in the group had just gone to film the Independence Day celebrations in the local town or city, and what a stir that had caused, because the Baka are like third-rate citizens. They're treated like slaves by the Bantu people in Cameroon. And for the Bantus to see Baka women with video cameras filming a national event was a game changer in terms of earning respect. Mexico is a wonderful example, and Nagaland, our partners in the Northeast Network, is an Indigenous women's-led organization, and they have. We did a training in 2014, 2015, and then nothing since then, other than staying in touch and just in solidarity and meeting at various gatherings and so on. But we haven't offered them any other capacity building, and they're still doing PV. They've made 40 or 50 videos, maybe 60 videos since then. They've won awards. And in Mexico, another example where we've been working since 2015, or even before actually, 2012, 2010, with La Marabunta Filmadora, the Army Ants filmmakers, and it's all women. So 3 different Indigenous groups, Raramuri, Comcac, and Yaqui, coming together in Northwest Mexico to make films. They have started with having quite a lot of difficulties with their menfolk, who were not very happy about the women traveling around, sharing their skills and running workshops. They're a bit suspicious, and sometimes they would cause trouble outside the workshop in the local town, like get drunk and just misbehave. And until the women had a good idea to enlist them as drivers and helpers, and when they were welcomed into the process and were given a role to drive them around, and they could see what was actually happening, and they could feel proud of their wives and support them, come on board. So yeah, so women, that's the second one, was monitoring and evaluating and measuring impact. So yeah, we at InsightShare, we're a social enterprise, we're not a charity, but we receive grants, and we also have an income stream from consultancy, from offering trainings and consultancy to NGOs, universities, various different clients that hire us. One of the most successful services that we've been running is combining participatory video with a method called most significant change. It's a monitoring and evaluation method. And it's basically setting up story circles of peer groups, like say adolescent girls, 8 girls meet together in a circle, then maybe eight grandmothers, whatever, across the board. And you ask the question, what's the most significant change this project has had in your life in the last year, something like that. So we use that technique ourselves on our own projects to help evaluate and monitor what's going on and what those impacts are. So, all 8 testimonies are recorded, audio recorded, and then transcribed. But the girls would have to vote on one story, just one out of the 8, which for all of them carries everyone's experience. It's like it's something they can all relate to, and then they dramatize or make a film about that story. So we get these films sent back to us. So there's a lot of use of actual participatory video in the actual monitoring and evaluation and capturing those stories of impact. That's really important. What was the third one again? Third question?
It was, what do the communities themselves initially come to you hoping to get out of it? Are they hoping for funding initially? Is it publicity, or is it the pure importance of having their stories heard, or something else?
It's kind of something else, actually. It's basically these Indigenous communities, they see videos as a way of creating a digital archive of their culture. So they focus on what they value and what they think is at risk of being lost. That includes language preservation. So they make video dictionaries. The Omolo people living on the shores of Lake Turkana in Kenya, it's the smallest Indigenous group in Kenya. Maybe around 1,000 people left. There are no living speakers of the language. There's elders that remember bits and bobs, but there's no fluent speakers left. And they tried creating a pictorial dictionary. They had researchers and linguists coming from Nairobi and interviewing people and creating this thing. But they found that by far the most effective tool was video, in creating a video dictionary, because it's something that the elders can see and hear, and they feel much more willing to share the knowledge that they have. Whereas when they're talking to outsiders, researchers from Nairobi, they're kind of a bit skeptical, like, why do these people want to know this? Why are they asking all these questions? They don't really trust it. And also they can't actually read the books and the dictionaries anyway in the first half that are created.
What you're doing, it's so nice, isn't it? You're actually going back to old-fashioned storytelling. It is like we're skipping the whole written world, word stage. It's really powerful. Yeah. Sorry. Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, I think David's got a question there. Thank you, David. Brilliant, Juliet. Great questions.
Right. Yes. I'm a Green Party parish councillor in Blackbird Leys. When I first heard your talk, I had a question which I realised was slightly wrong. Was what's the difference between participatory video and like activist videos, like the training courses Zoe Broughton does in Film Oxford? And it seems to be something to do with the equality in the participation. And where, how does that work? How do you avoid one loudmouth person dominating, but actually make everyone working together on this?
Yeah, good question, David. Yeah. You'll always get someone who wants to dominate in the group. And it's, often very well-meaning, because they're enthusiastic and, they feel they've got stuff to share or expertise. So it's just a question of acknowledging that person's enthusiasm and giving them a role, giving them a role to play, maybe asking them to go and do some research or go and find out, go and set up the next interview, just kind of get them out of the room and busy on something else so that other people get to have a go. But it's also built into the games that we use, David. So there's a whole suite of games, and they are games, and people don't really realize they're learning these new skills whilst they're playing these games. But it's they through the games they learn about different shot types, the impact of different angles if you film down or if you film up. They learn the very basics of how to press the record button, how to press the pause button, how to know when it's recording, when it isn't, how to frame a shot. So yeah, it's those games in themselves try to address that tendency for some people to want to dominate. So everyone has a chance to plug in a camera to the TV. Often it'll be the men that sort of start naturally going for the equipment, and the women just sitting in the back. Everyone has to do it, so they all have to have a go. And it's also, well, I don't know if I really clarified, but how one of our slogans is "Mistakes are great," and that's because we say right from the start in every workshop. In fact, the first game that we play is called the name game, and we just sit in a circle. So you're always sitting in a circle, by the way, never ever teaching from the front of the classroom. Mm-hmm. Sitting in a circle, I'm sitting in a circle, facilitator sitting as an equal with everyone else. And I'll pass the camera to the person sitting on my left and show them very basic stuff, like this is how you record, this is how you pause, point the camera at the person opposite, and the person opposite tells their name and what they had for breakfast, or something silly like if they were an animal, what animal would they be and why, or something like that. It doesn't matter what. So everyone gets to film and everyone gets to speak. This is the very first activity on the very first morning when everyone arrives. So everyone immediately gets their hands on the camera. Then we play back the footage and they learn very quickly 4 basic lessons. One is backlight, because inevitably there'll be a window somewhere in the room and someone's face will not come out properly because the backlight will be too strong. So they learn about that. They learn that you have to have the light behind you. I don't teach that. They learn it from experiencing themselves. The other one is, inevitably someone isn't holding the camera that steady, it's shaky, a bit shaky. So that's when I introduce the tripod. Not before, but only then when we see that it's needed. Likewise, the microphone. Some people speak really quietly, but the other side of the circle, you can't really hear them properly. So that's when I say, but that's why we use a microphone. So they'll remember it because they'll have seen it happen and they've learned it themselves, and then they'll remember to use it. So yeah, these are kind of things that hopefully that clarifies for you the difference. Of course, I know Zoe very well, and we've worked together a lot. Zoe does use some participatory video type of approaches in her work as well. She's very participatory, so there may be some similarities.
Genji of the Zebra Clan up next.
Thanks so much, Nick. This is fantastic. May I just ask then a couple of more questions? So how many sessions do people do to begin with? And when you say a hub, you have a PV hub. Is the hub sort of like place-based, or is it like people who get the first training and then they sort of disseminate it out?
Yeah, thanks. It tends to be place-based. It's good to have a space where you can keep equipment safely and where you can edit and gather. I mean, the way the fellowship runs, we actually had to innovate during COVID because we weren't able to travel anywhere, or nobody was able to travel anywhere and do face-to-face trainings. So we developed this online training, which we'd already been experimenting with, but everything had to go online. And so we created a whole bunch of resources. We worked out that we wanted to do a kind of flipped classroom approach, which basically means you send instructions at the beginning of the day, on how to do on the various games and activities that they have to do. And then they have a 1 hour chat with their trainer at the end of the day to reflect on the exercise. So they do the exercise first, then they talk to the trainer. The exercises needed to be sent on WhatsApp because the network problems we work in really remote areas in Kenya, Namibia, South Africa, and Tanzania for that first cohort in 2021, whenever it was, 2020. But it was a 6-month program. So and each group commits to meeting one day a week for 6 months. And the young people also have a mentor who's kind of a junior elder type level in an Indigenous community, someone who really understands the culture very deeply, who can vouch for the young people to their community and guide them and advise them. So the mentor would meet once a week with the cohort, roughly 3 women, 3 men. We always insist on gender equality in terms of numbers. And yeah, that's how it worked. So in terms of like running a fellowship program for climate emergency centres, we'd have to kind of get our heads together and think about how that would work. But I imagine it would be a hybrid between the idea was a hybrid, starting with a face-to-face training of a couple of days, 2-3 days, then going online for X number of months with a mentor and a group of young people committing to that. Then maybe some kind of a face-to-face post-production training where they're learning editing and that kind of more complicated stuff. But also gatherings in between so that the groups can meet with each other in different cohorts around the country.
Sounds fantastic. Thank you so much.
Brilliant. There's just so much scope here, and there's a lot of you in the room. Being one of the loud people sometimes in the room, I've always learned to try my best to pass the microphone around the circle. I've set up a lot of circular communities, but you're all out there. If anyone else has got a comment, a question, a feedback, anything they want to say, or anything about their group and how their group would like to tell a story, that's good. So stick your hand up, otherwise Phoenix will fill the void with some other bits as well. But I'm really excited by this. So do stick your hand up. Lorraine's jumped in there. I'm really excited by this. Just to say, we're going to work together with Nick, and we're going to develop a way that any of the climate emergency centres can tell their story with video. And there's some inspiring stories out there from the different centres we visited, but we want those people to tell their own stories. I love this process. Let's keep it going. Lorraine, over to the anti-fracking champions who have walked down to the Horse Hill crew.
This is more about our African groups for climate. We actually struggle to get to have our chapters actually produce, because we have like a global mobilization to movement build and raise awareness about debt cancellation that needs to happen in these countries. And so we have actions, and we find that God, I'm going to be really brutal here, but the videos are very uninspiring because all they're just doing is literally standing around with banners, kind of saying a slogan, and then we incorporate that into our wrap-up video. But of course, like really what we would love to see is kind of how they got to that point, which is, I suppose, what this participatory video is about. It's like, how did our chapter leads get everyone there for that actual action? What was the background to that? And I mean, I literally come just from yesterday of like, I'm a terrible one for guides. Like I come from a career where I move from job to job, and I like to impart all the knowledge that I've had. So I'm constantly writing how-to guides. And one of those things, Nick, that you talked about was like how to take video, hold the camera like this, have a microphone, stand with backlight. And we still find it, like quite challenging, on inspiring these groups to do that. And I suppose I don't know what question I'm asking here. I suppose it's just like, how do we impart this onto our chapters to say, look, get creative? I mean, I even put pictures of what looks like a viral video. you know, of
Mm.
someone with a microphone in their hand, or, you know, or like shouting or something. I don't know just what sort of inspiration that, you know, we can give them. And then I suppose my second part is like you talk about this training, and of course for, you know, us in the global north, I've just gone to your page to see what sort of training that we could have. But so is this like just, is this free training that you offer to some groups out in the global south? Like, how would the chapters that I'm engaged with been able to contact and get this experience and training from Insights? Is this something that we would need to fund? But yeah, I just wanted to share my experience because I do social media and sometimes it's just really, really difficult to get that across. So yeah, check.
Yeah, no, I mean, it sounds like you're doing a great job by sending you know, photographs and screenshots and showing you know, how not to do it and how to do it. I mean, I guess, you know, it's just going back to that experiential learning piece, I suppose. So maybe if, you know, if you had a process where they were meeting online and you gave them assignments every week, and then you could give feedback straight away on what they were doing, and, you know, ask them to do it again if it's not, doesn't meet what you're trying to get them to do, until they get it, you know, through experience. They get it. Oh, right, okay, I've got to film. I can't film on the main road because the noise, it's just too noisy. They won't realize that until they really hear the difference. You know, or how important backgrounds are. So like, you get these great shots, but the background's just awful, and it's like, but, you know, until they experience it, people won't know that. So in terms of training, I've just remembered actually that I should plug our next training, which is coming up soon, very soon. We do an online PV training, which is the cheapest way to get training from us. Well, the cheapest of all is downloading the free resources, of which there are many on our website, the toolkits. But then, yeah, we've got an online training starting on the 7th of October, 7th, 9th, 14th, 16th, and 21st of October. So it's 5 sessions, 5 2-hour sessions, I believe they are. So should I just add the person in the chat who you should contact if you want to do that? You can definitely get a 10% discount if you just say you join the webinar, maybe even a bit more if you need more. How do we get off? Yeah, I mean, we basically get funded at the moment by the Bertha Foundation and the Staples Trust, which is one of the Sainsbury's family trusts. They've both been supporting us for a long time, quite a long time. Very unrestricted funds. It's not big money, but it's enough to keep us going with the Indigenous video hubs. But the consultancy covers all our core costs. But, you know, we're charging people for training. So yeah, I mean, that's how we survive, really. So we do have to charge, and in order to do something with the climate emergence centres, we need to get our heads together and yeah, develop some funding proposals to do it properly.
Let's do it. Let's get the funding to the front lines and tell the real stories going on.
Can I just jump in with something there from our anti-colonial perspective? I mean, I do the guides. I just wanted to check in that it can't just be a white person telling groups this is how you do it. You know, I feel that, yeah, I'm just conscious of that. When I mean, we do the guides, but yeah, I'm just conscious that it's not just a bunch of white people going in and telling people on how they do something, and we kind of got to pull back on that. It's what you're saying. It's about kind of trial and error, and letting those and for having groups to work them out themselves. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of add that point. We're really very conscious about that, going in and saying, hey, look, this is how we do things, you should do it the same way.
That's what I partly really like about this, Lorraine, because the whole participatory thing is giving them the tools in a circle to do it, which I love, rather than just going and making a film about them from a Western perspective, you're saying make your own film. Here's the fishing rod, the tools. Just checking times and a few things. I'm always happy to carry on till, 1/4 past or more if so. Just want to check with Nick. Are you all right to go past 8 o'clock? And we're coming to Mustafa next.
Yeah, maybe like 10 till 10 past or something like that. 10,
Right.
yeah, 1/4 past. Yeah.
Cool. All right. And on other weeks, sometimes we will have breakout groups that people can chat and just say good facilitating skills. Sometimes say anyone who hasn't spoken or any sisters who want to spoke. Let's come over to Mustafa. We'll carry on till 10 past. People are going to go. Mustafa, greetings from where you are around the world. Go, over to you, Mustafa. Over. And
Hello, good afternoon, and thank you so much for this valuable session. And you can't know how much we are grateful for the whole InsightShare team. By the way, I'm speaking from Turkey, and I would love to share our story and encourage to share our story. In the Syrian context, maybe it's a different than the climate emergency case, but you might know what's happened in Syria for the 14 years in the crisis, but we found ourselves as Syrian NGOs stuck with a global overlooking, especially from the global media, and always challenging bringing the Syrian cause to the media. And in 2018, the idea came up with our team to find the new tools and solutions for that, to advocate for the Syrian cause and the vulnerable people inside Syria. And that's why we always repeating that we are grateful for these heroes and guys in InsightShare, because they were behind the successful we made in delivering the Syrian Syrian vulnerables stories in a very simple way. You find it's very simple because they make it simple with their knowledge, with their system. It's a fully prepared and knowledge system managed by those guys. And I'm really inviting everyone to get educated about it in a free or paid charges. But in general, what's happened in Syria, like as a Syrian NGOs, we try to always follow and attract the donors, international NGOs, to support the Syrian causes, Syrian families, the targeted people, civilians in Syria. And they started to, like, after 7-8 years, to see always Syria as a numbers, not the cases. So that's why the participatory approach is very important, because it highlights the individual cases, it highlights the community cases, it highlights the massive needs, and the people, when they talk themselves, their voices are getting heard. Not you as an NGO, when you enter in the middle of the message, and your role may be in the first of the crisis, your role to respond to the massive needs. But later on, you will find yourself always asking donors to support for additional funds, but they will not respond. The media will overlook your crisis because it lasts long. So that's why the very simple way, it's a unique, original messages, original content, original advocacy from the people delivered were impactful and impacted and influenced the donors more, and they were interested to do such trainings, such videos, and to, like, it's simple to give the camera to the people to talk about their diary, to talk about their daily life, daily challenges in the tents, in the floodings, in the heat waves, in all situations, to deliver their message without any touching, but more, even more, by giving them the opportunity to edit their videos, to talk themselves, to decide what kind of message they would love to convey. that's the uniqueness of this approach, and that in a nutshell, my story. That's why I'm always grateful to those guys, and happy to share our story, our experience from Syrian context, and all experiences. Thank you so much. Sorry for the long intervention.
Mustafa, that is powerful testimony and really took us there. If you could share your group's web link in the chat, maybe you should come and do your own webinar. This really is about linking out, to groups around the country and around the world, and sharing our stories. International solidarity, local solidarity, mutual aid and support is one of the themes of the network. So yeah, by all means, thank you for that. It was powerful testimony. And
it's so encouraging, when people like Mustafa come and tell us their stories. Again, it was an example where we just did one training with Mustafa and his organization and supported the initial process, and then left him up, to get on with it. And we recently received a video from him talking about the last, I don't know how many years it is, Mustafa, I can't remember, a bit less than 10 years, but maybe 7-8 years ago, something like that. And telling us the whole story of everything he'd done. We weren't even aware of most of it at all. And it was just so exciting for me and my team to watch your video and to hear about the impact of participatory video in your country and with your communities. So thanks so much for joining today as well. I'm really touched. Thank you.
I would love to see that video. Mustafa, go on.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. Actually, we did beyond that by also I mean we've secured a grant from Save the Children International just to teach 14 NGOs, Syrian NGOs, on the participatory video, and the InsightShare were also a partner in this training. We spread this approach across all the local communities after 4 or 5 years from our first training in 2018. So that's why it's the biggest maybe achievement after our training. Thank you so much.
While we're still on that, we'd love you to come and do your own webinar, Mustafa. And just to say a couple bits before we dive over to Diane, there is I would love to see more participatory videos by groups in Rojava. They have a whole system of public and community and council assemblies that we're not hearing enough about over here in Western countries. One of the most powerful films, a guy Jan, who was with us at the Parliament Square occupations against the illegal wars, Iraq and Afghanistan. He went off, worked with Syrian groups, and he came back and showed at the Hive in Dalston such a powerful video about the journey from these groups who are just protesters like us in Syria, and then the whole civil war going off, and the inside story of how it went from non-violent kind of Occupy style people's assemblies to then it becoming extremely violent civil war. Was a really intense film. And I think we should find that and get.
I think we can do it through Nick and the InsightShare guys, because now I've joined the InsightShare as an associate trainer and consultant, and we can dedicate another session maybe to talk about the story from Syria with the InsightShare guys.
Let's book that one in, Mustafa. Big tingles going on here on the back of the neck. Okay, tell those stories. Diane, thank you for waiting patiently. We're in the last 5 minutes, folks, but thank you everyone for your wisdom tonight. Diane.
Yeah, I almost apologise for this because almost nothing. I put it in the chat because when the thing about funding and money, and it just drives me crazy. I keep not getting involved in it, and I can't have anything to do with money. Life is not about money and all that sort of stuff. And then I see something that I really want to do, and they're asking for funding, and it just makes me think, instead of, when you see adverts come on the telly, instead of asking all the ordinary people who are already struggling and scraping the barrel to just keep alive and make a cup of tea, why aren't we asking the people who've got some? Let's try. And also today, all this day, I've been trying to encourage people to ask each other to help each other. So many of them are all like, oh, I don't like to ask, and oh, I don't like to do, and oh, we don't like to disturb. Actually, people love helping each other. Everybody feels inspired and feels better when they help each other. We are here to serve, really. So if we can get through to people and ask some of the people who've got some money for some, blah, blah, blah. But I would also say that if we did manage to do the learning and do the next training, for example, is it possible that we can share the video, you know, and therefore share it with all our young people on the estate, for example? Because I've got people on the estate who are saying, oh, we need to do things with the young people. Actually, of course we do, yes. And I would well, I used to love to. I'm not so. I'm too old now. No, not really.
Brilliant.
You know, are we allowed to share it? Is my brief question.
We're going to try and get this video up as soon as possible. We need some help in the back end.
Share this
to
one,
get
yeah,
these up
lovely.
quicker, but we'll get this one up quick and get it out so people can share it. I think it's one of the most powerful ones we've had.
It's really
You know,
amazing.
very
And but I'd
powerful.
also really like. I'm sorry about this as well. I want to share the Pete Sudbury one.
Yes.
I want to show it to our councillors. I've spoken to a couple of councillors and I can't find the video.
Right.
Well,
So, yeah.
we're actually going to do a crowdfunder for the first time ever. It's our 25th anniversary. At the end of this year, we're going to launch our first ever crowdfunder. Imagine if 1,000 people gave us 10 quid. That's £10,000. So I think that's going to be our target amount. And then I'm going to try and find a foundation that might match whatever we raise. You know, then we might have £20,000. So it's a start. We're also, you know, trying to develop longer term funding proposals to approach various different foundations. There are some new foundations that are much more radical, much more cutting edge, looking to fund exactly this. It's just about getting to the right person and, you know, forming a really powerful, compelling proposal, which we can't do on our own. But we need to be resourced, show how we're resourcing movements like yours, and we put proposals together. Then I think we can attract the money.
And make a video that explains how we share the joy.
Yeah,
They can all do it too.
Yeah.
Just there finally, and I'll come over to Nick for absolute final comments and whatever you want to share, Nick, at the end there a couple of minutes ago. But just to say, let's see this as the beginning of a process. We've been chatting behind the scenes with Nick about you know, trying to work together to raise some funds to, you know, get this participatory video workshop out to many different climate emergency centres. And each of these centres is not just one building. Part of the handbook's about creating an alliance of groups that come and use that building. There are a network of projects and many different events and projects that come into every single building. So if we can raise some funds and get Nick and others, and they train up others, each one teach one, as Nick said, and the old Black Panthers used to say with their food programs and other ones. If we could get it out there to many, many people, they could be telling the story not only of how successful their CEC is and the great change it's brought about to individuals, projects, and the environment on, you know, everything from economy to social to mental health to isolation improvement to getting people involved. We're really hoping to, you know, keep weaving this and build the toolkit so that new groups who want to get a centre can say, right, I'll watch the 10-minute video put together by all the different groups on how to negotiate with the council, the whatever 10-minute video on how to start approaching developers and councils to get your building, or how to deal with whatever it is, putting on events, whatever. Share those video toolkits. With that thought, this is an ongoing process, folks. I'm going to pass you back over to Nick for parting final comments, and then I'll tell you what next week is, which I think might be an author who's done a film about fires and fascism and how we need to counter some of those things with filmmaking, possibly. Over to Nick for final comments. Thank you so much for coming. Absolutely inspired. Over.
No, I just really want to say thank you as well. Thank you for all of you for your attention, for this really wonderful discussion we've had as well. Special thanks to Mustafa for joining. That's such a lovely surprise. My other friend Dee Woods, I see, is here. Thanks, Dee. Really great to see you. Lorraine, amazing to see you again. That's awesome. Hope we can get to work together, because that last gathering where we saw each other was very special, wasn't it? Very, very magical. So I'm also, reaching back out to Gail, who was also at that gathering. So really interested in the Life Houses project as well, and how you guys, I don't know how you're aligning yourselves, but Phoenix, we haven't met face to face, but I feel like I know you already. We've had some great chats and made a really lovely connection with you. Looking forward to seeing you in Oxford when I get back. So yeah, thanks very much, everyone.
Brilliant. Let's make it happen, folks. Just a quick plug. At the end next week, we have Miranda from the Anti-Mining, Anti-Glencore Network. Some of these mining corporations really doing over a lot of Indigenous and other groups' land around the world. So check in. That's next Wednesday with Anti-Mining, Anti-Glencore. And the following one is Peter Knapp, discussion with the filmmaker on fires and fascism. He's found a link between the wildfires going off all over southern Europe and the right wing lot who are fanning some of these fires, should we say, on a lot of levels. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll stop the recording there. Hope to see you next week. Join the WhatsApp if you haven't, and let's keep networking and keep taking action wherever you are in your centre or
Thank
project.
you.